All right, so pick up where I left off. The console app talks to the Azure Web Service. This is how we get, so that console app does pre-processing of the data, determines the velocity, and basically sends that velocity down to the vibration machine learning service. So what this is just a web API that I built in .NET, and you can see, I mentioned before the database is how I see that that everything was working functionally, that data got to the web service and it saved to the data. I can also come in here and see I can see the HTTP web requests. There's lots of things you can do within this tool here. You can see it's running and blah blah blah, but this is the URL that I'm using. All I'm doing is doing an HTTP post, and data's coming through here. So the next thing it does after you do the web service, it saves it to the database. The very next thing it does is it says, okay, now that I've saved off the data, let's go see what the predictive machine learning service says to do. So it does another HTTP request. The web service does an HTTP request to machine learning. Now, an Azure machine learning is a different site. So like portal.azure.com, studio.azureml.net, you can see, like, it basically is a whole nother site. You have to log in again. It's kind of a pain. Annoying is really what it is. So this is the free machine learning studio project I have set up. There's some limitations with it, which I'll mention here in a bit. But basically, this is a project. It's basically a collection of these other things. So you can see I have one experiment, one web service, and one data set in it. If I look at the data set, I have my vibration data set here. This is data that I got from my brother on some vibration measurements they were getting on some fans, some blower fans, and then also some bearings on an engine type deal. So the experiments is really where you start really making sense of anything. And you'll see lots in here. I'll show a little bit later on the neat one that comes that I did not do that I'd really like to do. This is the vibration data model I built. The idea here is the experiment should take the data, do something with it, and return a result, and it should allow you to experiment on whether or not the data prediction is working properly. So this is really simple. I'm sure a lot of data scientists will say this isn't even really real machine learning. But I have right here, I have that data set. I say, go do a bunch of data transformation to get the data in a way that I can then run something on it. And then I've written some R script here, so I've had to kind of pick up and learn R, at least a little bit of it, to do this. But basically I just use a forecast library based on cycles and the seasonality of the data, and then it'll help you predict what the next X number of outputs will be. So that's all it does. It's just a library that I'm calling into with my data. You'll see here there's the web service endpoint and an output. So once you have an experiment that's running and you're happy with it, you can add a web service input and output. That allows you to say, you pass this data in via this web service, and here's the data that comes out of it. Very simple. I probably didn't really even need to explain it, but this is how you can expose the experiment that you built with the web service. There's lots of other stuff here I won't get into, but that's what you have. And if I kind of go back here to, actually I'm going to go to my web service. So that was the model, and I have the web service. And what you do is when you're in there, you deploy your web service. So like right here it says that this is part of the project. This is what I built. So when I deployed it, I built this web service. And this is all done for you. It gives you keys here. It even allows you to test it with a request response. And here's what I thought was really neat was if you click on that there, it'll actually give you, here's the JSON request you have to put in, and here's the response you'll get. Now if you scroll all the way down, you have some sample source code. Like there's some issues with this, like I had to tweak some things to get it to work, but I was able to pull this in C#, and I basically just had to modify how this request would be done because I needed it to be a lot more dynamic than this. And this shows you how to actually interact with it. So like all the actual response, the post is JSON async, like that stuff, I kept all that. That all worked just fine. I just needed to rework how the request was built. But this was really handy. I could just copy and paste it and modify to my needs. Excuse me. So that was one of the cool parts of it. And that's pretty much how this all works. So basically, now that I built my experiment and I identified the model that I want to use, I'm exposing it via a web service. Now, the other piece to this that I wanted to show is I do have some other experiments in here that I really think is the next steps to this project, and there's a predictive maintenance template here that Microsoft provides you. Super snazzy thing. So here you have the data input, bunch of transformation, and then you have 3 different categories of machine learning algorithms. So here's 4 different algorithms based on one category. Here's another set. Here's another set. So they're all different types of, and basically you run all those algorithms on all of them, and then you kind of bring them back together and then evaluate which one works best, which one's closest, which one's has the biggest margin of error. So it's been a pretty neat thing. I could probably spend the whole class working on this, which is one of the reasons why I didn't work on this, other than the fact that my real data that I have that I would stub in here is not it's just not precise enough for the accelerometer. I would need to get a much more precise large 20G accelerometer versus a 3G accelerometer, which is what I have. So that's this piece. I really wanted to show this because this was really cool stuff. So I will mention too, it's hard to tell from when I was testing this whether or not this really worked and everything was functional because I'm using the free Azure Learning Studio workspace. I don't get access to monitoring and support, so I can't see the access that's going on there. I can't see the HTTP requests going in the responses. I just don't get access to that. So, but the way I was able to figure that out is basically the data that's coming through. So next is I have a service bus set up. So I get the data back to the web service from machine learning. What do I do now? It returns back that data. Here's the actual and here's the predicted value. And I have a value in there saying my deviation is a 0.01 Gs, I think is how much deviation I have in there. And if it deviates 0.01, that's an indicator that there's going to be a failure because it's a blip. It's a blip in the trend that we should be seeing. And if we get that blip, then it basically sends something out. It sends a notification out that there was a failure. And this is a neat little dashboard they have. You can see when I was testing this before. where you can see the messages that were sent out, successful notifications, total notifications, registrations. You can get that all here. Pretty neat and handy dashboard here. And even more, I have another thing here where you can do some testing. I want to test a toast, test message. If I scroll down, hit send. Okay, and then you can't see it, but I just got a toast notification saying test message. So I know that this is working. So the thing I'll show here, I'm not sure how I'm going to show it yet. That may be another part of a video, but I need to be able to demonstrate. So like if I move, what I've been doing as a test is I won't even turn on the motor, but I'll just move it like this to get a really big deviation in the velocity curve, and that'll cause errors. What I've noticed the other day is as my battery was running out, my battery would run out. It was causing the motor to go slower and slower and slower. I did see some deviation there. I started getting notifications, so that was kind of neat to see from that standpoint. But I don't know that I'm going to show you guys that, but that's how that would work. But I'm going to try and show you some of the other stuff in another segment.